Good afternoon guys and welcome back on my channel in a new video. Today we're going to discuss a very interesting topic, and before we start with the discussion, I invite you to subscribe to the channel because we are at 211 subscribers at the moment. I hope that on the 17th of July, which is the day this video is going to be out, is the first video that I'm pre-recording for the time that I'm in London, that I'm going to be in England, and for the time that I'm going to be in Cuba also. Right now, here is the 3rd of July. Djokovic just won his round 1 match against Kashin a couple of hours ago, and we'll talk about that later. I invite you to subscribe to the channel. As I've said, the goal is to reach 300 subscribers as soon as possible. Then I invite you to leave a like, which is crucial for the channel's growth. Then I invite you to activate the notification bell, because by activating the notification bell, you will receive a notification for every video or every post that I publish on this channel. So it's really helpful for you in order to follow and to be able to see what's happening in the channel. Then I invite you to share the video with as many people as you know. Then I invite you also to comment by sharing your opinion on this really interesting topic that today we're going to talk about. So, as I've said, I will start by saying that on the 17th of July, Djokovic may have won his Wimbledon number 8. So that could change the cards into the table. But I will consider both possibilities. Djokovic winning 8 Wimbledons and Djokovic with 7 Wimbledons. So what I want to talk about today? Today I want to talk about Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. The best two grass court players of the last 20 years, since Victor Sampras retired. The two players that have won the most Wimbledon titles. Of course, we have Federer at 8 Wimbledon titles, stands alone at the moment. On the 3rd of July, he stands alone, but at the 17th, maybe Djokovic equal this record. I don't know it, honestly, because I can't. He probably, at the moment you are seeing this video, Djokovic has 8 Wimbledon, probably 8 Wimbledons. But at the moment I'm recording this video, Djokovic has 7 and Federer has 8. And then we have Peter Sampras at 7, but he's retired, of course. Those two giants have played 4 times at Wimbledon. They've played 3 times in the final, and once in the semi-finals. They've played the first match at Wimbledon actually was the only win that Federer recorded against Djokovic on grass. Federer won in 4 sets against Djokovic at Wimbledon in 2012. Then the second match they played was at Wimbledon in 2013 in the final, where Novak Djokovic won in 5 sets. Then in 2015, Djokovic won in 4 sets, and in 2019 in that epic final, of course, Djokovic won in 5 sets. In 5 sets, Djokovic. So their head-to-head on grass and at Wimbledon is 3-1 in favor of Djokovic, and 3-0 in favor of Djokovic always in finals. So that is an interesting thing. Federer won 19 titles on grass, unless I'm mistaken. He won 8 titles at Wimbledon, 10 titles at Halle, and 1 title at Stuttgart, and Djokovic won only, but the important ones. He won 7 titles at Wimbledon. So in terms of title, Federer is the best, but Djokovic could have 8 titles on grass now, I don't know, as I said, but it's a really great comparison that I will do right now. It's not going to be a comparison like the one that I did between Nadal and Alcaraz as 19-year-olds. It's going to be more based on my knowledge. I remember some stats of them, and I want to give and share my opinion about this really interesting topic that, as I've said, we have just started to discuss. I believe personally that, well, let's talk about technique. I think that Federer is the best player to ever play the game on grass in the last 20 years, at least, and statistically speaking, the best of all time. But as you know, I don't really like the GOAT debate. Sometimes I throw the GOAT debate in because it's interesting. It adds a little bit of spice, and you have to. I mean, it's fair. Until it's not toxic, it's fair that you put some spice into it. But Now, talking about things, I believe that Federer as the best game for grass. I will start, and I will also say that grass has changed a lot in the last 20 years. So when Federer was dominating grass, grass was transitioning for the fast, very fast grass courts that we remembered in the 90s to the slower grass courts in the 2000s, actually. So yeah, I want to say that grass courts changed, and the way they changed helps Djokovic more, and that's a factor. But this gives Djokovic a point in terms of adapting to the circumstances, to the scenarios that he faces. But Federer still won two Wimbledon titles when the grass courts already slowed down in 2012 and 2017, and in 2020 defeated Djokovic in the semis, then he defeated Andy Murray in the final, so arguably the best three grass court players of the last 20 years faced, or at least, yes, faced against each other in the semis and finals. So Federer defeated the two best grass court players apart from him of the last 20 years. I believe that Murray is even better than Nadal on grass, to be honest. I know that Nadal has won the same amount of Wimbledon titles, but Murray has been more consistent role. But by the way, it's not important. Murray is a legend on grass, without doubt, and at Wimbledon especially. And I believe that technically Federer has the best shots for grass, is a kind of grass player. Instead, Djokovic isn't a natural grass court player. So I'll start by saying that Djokovic's game suits perfectly on every surface. On grass, hard courts, and clay courts, and indoor hard court. The same goes for Federer's game, of course. He played fantastic tennis on all the surfaces. I mean, also on clay, the surface where he struggled the most. Do you remember that epic French Open final in 2011 against Novak Djokovic, when he defeated the unbeatable Joker? So both of them can adapt to the circumstances really well, but I believe that Djokovic has the edge in this factor. Djokovic started slowly, so Federer started very, very good when he was really young, and Djokovic started slower. But then Djokovic surpassed Federer. Talking about grass, I believe, as I've said, that Federer has the best game for grass. What Federer did really, really well was to adapt to different generations and different circumstances, because Federer dominated the ATP Tour when surfaces were transitioning from the old and fast ones, and to the old style, serve and volley and stuff like that, serve and volley, out of volleys, out of powerful serves. It was more based on this, from a tennis that transitioned to a tennis made by baseliners mainly, such as Djokovic and Nadal. So Federer had rivals such as Hewitt, Roddick, for example, Safin, that were more offensive players. Then he had to adapt his game to the new generation, because, as I've said, I believe that Federer is not in the same generation of Djokovic and Nadal, age-wise. They've played a lot, so they are considered in the same generation, but I mean, in my opinion, every generation is 2-3 years, and Federer is 6 years older than Djokovic and 5 years older than Nadal. So he's from another generation in my point of view. But I mean, we can't not consider Djokovic in Federer in Djokovic and Nadal's group era in terms of the matches that they've played. And this is what Federer did really well. On the other hand, Djokovic's dominance lasted for more. So Djokovic started to dominate in the early 10s, and he dominated in the late 10s and middle 10s also, and then he's dominating in the early 20s. On the other hand, Federer dominated in the early mid late 2000s, but then in the 10s didn't dominate So this is something that goes to Djokovic, of course. And I believe that at the end of the day, at the end of their careers, well, Federer ended his career already, but I'm talking about Djokovic. I believe that Djokovic will end up with more Wimbledon titles because, as I've said in the last English video, I believe that Djokovic will win 9 to 11 Wimbledon titles. So I believe that Djokovic will win and will end up with more Wimbledon titles than Federer. And this year he could have already had the chance to surpass Federer had Wimbledon 2020 been played, because I know that if doesn't exist, but I also want to mention that Wimbledon 2020 would have been a Grand Slam win by Djokovic, most probably, considering the format it was in, and considering that Federer would have not played because he would have withdrawn from the tournament. And the answer was Nadal, but in my point of view, Djokovic would have won that one, and he would have been the main favorite, of course. So Djokovic could have already had the chance this year to surpass him, but it's going to happen next year. I think that Djokovic has already tied Federer and Wimbledon titles the moment you're watching this video. And this is something that goes to Djokovic because his dominance was more extended. In terms of shots, pure technique, Federer has the edge, in my opinion. He has a game that is more suitable for grass than how much Djokovic's game is suitable for grass, as I've said and as I've mentioned. When Federer was dominating, his game was perfect. Djokovic's one wasn't perfect anymore. Wasn't perfect already, yet, not already. Instead, Federer game, still, even with the surface that slew, even if the surfaces are getting slower and slower, got slower and slower every year, Federer's game still was fantastic for grass, was the perfect game for grass. I mean, volleys, drop shots, net game, touch, hand skills, powerful forehands, fantastic serve, and everything. But Djokovic and Federer, the fact that Djokovic and Federer played against each other and Djokovic has the edge is a big factor. I know that you were talking about who's been the best player on grass, not against each other only, but against all the other field. But I believe that Federer on grass is true that I believe, as I've said, Federer on grass was more dominant and he was the best. So against the other, Federer was the best, but Djokovic was the best against the best. So you know what I'm saying. And I know that you will say, we have to consider also the fact that when Djokovic and Federer played, Federer was 33, 33 and 37 years old, and Djokovic was either 31 or 27 or 26, which is true, by the way, without doubt, 27 or 28. So Federer faced in his not prime years, because he still was in 2013 and 2015 and 2019, one of the best players. He was the best player against after Nadal and Djokovic, but he wasn't in his prime anymore, so they never met in Federer's prime. This is true. When Federer was dominating in 2007, 2008, 2005, 2006, they didn't meet. Instead, they met when Federer was aging, and you would say, but Djokovic now is as old as Federer was a couple of years back. The years you're talking about, yes, I know it, but Djokovic doesn't face opponents as tough as Federer faced, which was Djokovic when he was in his late 30s. So that's a factor also, as I've said. And it's something that we have to consider. But to be the best, you have to be the best among the best. So this goes to Djokovic. And as I've said, I believe, personally, to end this video, to ask the question of this video, I believe that if Djokovic ends with more Wimbledon than Federer, he is the best grasscourt player of the last 20 years. Because his head-to-head is favorable to Federer's. His ability to adapt to circumstances is better than Federer's. And his dominance lasted for more years and is lasting for more years. So if Djokovic doesn't get to 8 Wimbledons, and he probably got to 8, it's kind of 55-45 for Roger, but if Djokovic equals Federer, maybe it's 50-50, but if Djokovic surpasses Federer, I think that the debate goes to Djokovic, in my personal point of view. So those are my answers to the questions and to the topics that we have discussed today. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I invite you to leave a like, which is crucial for the channel's growth, activate the notification bell, and also connect to the notification bell. Subscribe to the channel, then activate the notification bell. You'll receive a notification for every video that I publish on this channel. Then I invite you to share the video with many people you know. And last but not least, drop a comment and share your opinions on these topics. Thank you very much for all the support, guys. We'll see you tomorrow in a new video. Ciao!